I've always been interested in research. Like even as a kid, I liked biology, physics. I always just wanted to become a scientist, even though I didn't really know what that would entail. And yeah, throughout high school, I became more and more interested in medicine, but I didn't really see myself as a doctor. And like I did an internship in the hospital, and afterwards I was like, this is great, it's fascinating what's going on, but I'm not going to be the person who's treating the patients. I want to understand how the disease works, like how we can define like new therapies, etc. So yeah, I went on to do a bachelor's in human biology, and then a master's in immunology, and eventually I moved to Canada, Vancouver, all the way on the West Coast to do a PhD in human immunology. So I've always been very interested in approaching science from a translational point of view, like how can we use our knowledge that we get from the lab to further therapies for patients, or how can we use patient samples to actually address questions that are important for the patient population. For a long time, we didn't really think about any communication between the brain and the immune system. Like the immune system is there to defend us against infections, and the brain is there to think and coordinate functions. But we didn't really think about how the immune system can maybe cause psychiatric diseases, or the other way around, how the brain can be involved in fighting infections. So the project is focused on schizophrenia. So many people might have heard of schizophrenia. Patients develop hallucinations, but also a lot of motivational deficits. And it's a quite severe disease that cannot be cured. And actually in the United States, about 1% of the population is affected. So we're talking about a large number of patients. And while we have medications that can treat the hallucinations and some other symptoms, there are symptoms that cannot be treated very well, for example, the motivational deficits. And we don't really understand how schizophrenia develops or why it develops. And that's why we don't have any novel therapies that have come on the market for many decades. And in the project that I'm working on, we're trying to understand the molecular mechanisms. So I'm working with a patient population. They have a rare genetic disorder called 22q deletion syndrome. And in these patients, about 25% of them develop schizophrenia, so much more than the 1% of the general population. And so we're using blood samples from these patients and blood samples from healthy controls. And then in the lab, from the blood cells, we make different kinds of brain cells and study what is different in the brain cells from the patients with the genetic disorder compared to the brain cells from the healthy controls. And the goal is to understand molecular mechanisms that can underlie schizophrenia, and hopefully in the long run this will help develop new therapeutics. I'm really grateful for the support from the PhRMA Foundation, because it allows me to fully delve into this project and not only approach the science from a molecular perspective, but also collaborate with clinicians and perform research that's really translational, going from bedside to bench and back to bedside. I think if someone would have told me 10 years ago this is where I would be living in the United States, making brain cells out of blood cells to study schizophrenia, I wouldn't have believed it. So I think what's been really fascinating to me is how life can take its turns, and how there's always novel developments in research. So what you will be doing in 10 years might not exist right now. So it's very exciting. I really love research, so I would like to stay in academia, and my dream is to set up my own research lab and continue with research.